Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right with women, yet somehow you're still invisible to them? Like no matter how nice, how giving, or how available you are, you're always overlooked or pushed aside for someone who seems to do far less but gets far more. That silent frustration, that feeling of not being seen, not being respected, not being chosen, it eats away at your confidence. But here's the truth that no one told you. It's not because you're not enough. It's because you're playing a game you never understood, with rules no one taught you. That ends today. Most men are operating in the dark when it comes to women. They chase love, approval, and attention without realizing that their very effort is what's repelling it. You try harder, and she pulls away. You give more, and she seems to care less. It doesn't make sense until you understand this one brutal truth: women don't respond to effort. They respond to energy, your presence. Your ability to lead, to remain calm under pressure, to set the tone. That's what she's looking for, even if she doesn't say it out loud. Deep down, she wants to feel you, not your desperation, not your neediness, but your silent, grounded strength. And this isn't about pretending to be someone you're not. This isn't about becoming manipulative or playing fake alpha. It's about waking up. It's about seeing that you've been lied to, that you were trained to believe being soft, agreeable, and always available makes you attractive. But in reality, what women truly crave is polarity, masculine and feminine energy in balance. They want a man who leads, who protects, who commands attention without asking for it. A man who doesn't just chase pleasure but lives with purpose. That man has gravity. That man doesn't beg to be chosen. He is the choice. And if you stay through this entire message, if you absorb it with an open heart and a focused mind, you will begin to see the world differently. You'll stop seeing women as confusing puzzles and start seeing them as reflections of your inner strength. You'll stop chasing what you think you need and start becoming the man who naturally attracts it. Because when you master the deeper truths of female psychology, not to manipulate, but to understand, you become powerful in a way that few ever experience. Not just with women, but in every area of life. This is your moment, your turning point. The quiet decision that separates boys from men. What's coming next will change how you see women, how you carry yourself, and how you lead in every interaction. So don't look away. Don't click off. Lean in. This isn't just about them, it's about you. And if you're ready to step into the man you were always meant to become, then keep listening, because everything is about to change. Most men live their entire lives reacting to her mood, her silence, her affection, her rejection. They wake up wondering what she thinks, what she feels, what she wants. But the man who leads doesn't react, he creates. He doesn't wait for permission to be powerful. He owns it. And here's the truth that sets you free. Women don't want a man who needs them to feel whole. They want a man who chooses them from a place of wholeness. When you carry that energy, everything changes. You stop needing her to text back. You stop panicking when things feel uncertain, because you no longer depend on her emotional weather to decide who you are. You become the storm, the steady force she can't look away from, the presence she feels when you walk into a room, not because you're loud or flashy, but because you're rooted, grounded, certain. That kind of man is rare. And rare is irresistible. She doesn't want a mirror. She wants a rock. She wants someone who isn't shaken by her tests, who doesn't collapse under emotional pressure, who doesn't beg for validation but commands respect through action and energy. That's the kind of man who doesn't chase, he attracts. Not by games, not by tricks, but by alignment with his own power. When you understand female psychology at its core, you realize that most of what she does is driven by one thing: the desire for safety. Not just physical safety, but emotional, psychological, and spiritual safety. And safety doesn't come from agreeing with everything she says. It comes from having a backbone, from being able to say no without fear, from holding your ground when she tries to test your strength. Because she will test you, not because she's cruel, but because she needs to know if your confidence is real or fragile. And when you pass those tests, when you respond with calm certainty instead of chaos, her respect deepens, her attraction grows, her loyalty forms. This is what most men miss. They think love is won through effort, gifts, and constant availability. But women aren't moved by your effort, they're moved by your energy. She doesn't want to feel like she owns you. She wants to feel like you own yourself, that you have a mission, that you're focused, that you can hold space for her emotions without drowning in them, that you won't fall apart when things get hard, because if you can't lead yourself, you'll never lead her. And leadership isn't about dominance, it's about direction, vision, control of your inner world. When you become that man, she senses it without words. It's in how you breathe, how you hold silence, how you carry yourself without seeking anything. That kind of presence is unforgettable, it's rare, it's primal. And it's exactly what awakens the feminine at her core. She doesn't want a boy to impress her. She wants a man who inspires her. Be that man, not for her, for you, because that's where real power begins. There's a part of her that desperately craves to feel seen, heard, and desired, but not by just anyone, by a man whose attention means something. A man whose presence is earned, not given away freely. And here's what most men never understand. When you constantly give her validation, when you pour attention into her every move, every outfit, every mood, you're not making her feel more secure. You're slowly becoming invisible. Because the more easily she gets your praise, the less value it holds. What's abundant is rarely treasured. What's rare becomes unforgettable. And your validation only holds power when it's backed by self-respect. She wants to feel beautiful, yes, but more than that, she wants to feel chosen by a man who could have anything but chooses her because he's whole, not because he's hungry. When your approval is constant, it becomes background noise. But when it comes from a place of inner strength, from a man who sees her but isn't moved by every shift in her energy, it becomes intoxicating. You must learn to validate with intention, not desperation. Give praise, but never as a plea. Share admiration, but not from lack. Let her earn your attention through her presence, her kindness, her loyalty, not just her looks. When you validate from a place of power, your words hold weight. She leans in, she listens, she feels it, not just hears it. That's because women are emotional processors. They feel more than they analyze. Your energy speaks before your voice ever does. So when your energy is needy, even sweet words push her away. But when your energy is calm, centered, and focused, even silence draws her in. That is the power of restraint. That is the power of selective approval, not because you're playing games, but because you know your worth. And this is where everything begins to shift. Because when you stop handing out validation like candy and start offering it with purpose, she starts to respect you differently. She starts to value your words, not just hear them. She starts to show up with more intention, more softness, more feminine energy. And all of that happens without you saying a word, because your energy taught her how to treat you. You became the standard, not by demanding it, but by embodying it. So ask yourself, are you praising her to build her up, or to fill your own emptiness? Are you complimenting her from confidence or from fear? Because if it's fear, she'll feel it, and she'll slowly disconnect, not knowing why. But if it's strength, she'll open, she'll soften, she'll lean in. Your power as a man isn't in how much you give, but in how rooted you are when you choose to give it. And when your validation becomes rare, grounded, and real, it becomes gold in her heart. Not because she needs your praise to survive, but because your praise reminds her of your strength. Most women carry a silent fear they rarely admit out loud, the fear of being alone, not just physically, but emotionally, the fear of being unseen, unloved, or abandoned. That fear can shape how she talks, how she connects, how she tests, and even how she clings. And if you don't understand this, you'll take her behavior personally. You'll react to her neediness, her silence, her hot and cold energy, without seeing the deeper truth underneath. But once you recognize that fear for what it is, you gain the power to stop reacting and start leading, because the man who stands solid in the face of her fear becomes the anchor she didn't know she needed. But that anchor isn't built by chasing her when she pulls away. It's not built by constantly trying to fix, reassure, or rescue. It's built by showing her through your actions, not your words, that you are a man who doesn't fear solitude, that you are not another boy looking for emotional shelter. You are the shelter. You are the calm. You are the stillness she's been looking for but couldn't find in a world full of noise. When she senses that you are at peace with yourself, when she feels that your happiness doesn't depend on her validation, a deep shift happens inside her. Her defenses drop. Her trust rises, and her fear begins to dissolve. The moment you stop fearing her distance, she becomes magnetized by your presence. The moment you stop chasing connection and start embodying stability, she starts chasing connection with you. Because deep down, she wants to feel led, not controlled, not smothered, led. And only a man who knows how to be alone, who doesn't crumble in silence, can offer that kind of leadership. That kind of man doesn't just attract her, he earns her respect. And respect is the foundation of lasting desire. You don't build that respect by withdrawing emotionally or playing hard to get. You build it by building you, by falling in love with your own life, by becoming the kind of man who moves forward with or without attention. That kind of energy creates gravity. It's quiet but powerful. It doesn't ask for permission to be felt. It simply exists. And she feels it. She feels it in the way you take space, in the way you breathe, in the way you hold eye contact without needing anything from her. That's not arrogance. That's inner mastery. She fears being alone because she's never met a man who thrives in solitude. Be that man. Not to prove a point, but because peace is your default. When you stop running from your own silence, you stop chasing hers. And in that stillness, she finally feels safe. Not because you filled her emptiness, but because you showed her how to stop fearing it. That's what makes you powerful. That's what makes her trust you. And when she trusts you, she follows, not because she has to, but because her soul wants to. There is something in her biology that pulls her towards strength, not aggression, not force, but quiet, grounded, commanding strength, a presence that doesn't flinch when challenged, a gaze that doesn't lower when tested, a voice that doesn't rise just to be heard, but speaks when necessary with weight. She is drawn to dominant energy, even if she doesn't fully understand why. It's not a choice, it's instinct. Evolution didn't teach her to follow words, it taught her to follow energy. And the man who carries dominance in his posture, his tone, his actions, without needing to prove it, triggers something ancient inside her. Not fear, not submission, safety. But dominance without discipline is chaos. And that's not what she's looking for. What makes you magnetic is not how loud you are, but how composed you stay. Real masculine energy doesn't seek to overpower. It leads without trying. It moves with clarity. It makes decisions, holds boundaries, and never asks for reassurance. Because the moment you start needing her agreement to lead, she no longer feels your power. She feels your doubt. And doubt repels her more than anything. Women aren't wired to follow weakness. Not because they're cruel, but because they're wired to survive. And survival requires strength. That strength isn't in your size. It's not in your money. It's in your ability to remain centered when everything pulls at you. It's how you handle her emotions when they surge. It's how you hold the frame when she tests it. And she will test it. Not to break you, but to feel you. To feel if your strength is a costume or your core. And the moment you get reactive, defensive, or passive, she senses the mask. But when you remain grounded, when you meet her intensity with calm leadership, something shifts. She relaxes. She softens. She surrenders. Not because you forced her, but because your energy gave her permission. This kind of dominance isn't about control. It's about presence. You don't have to bark orders or make demands. You lead by example. Through consistency, through stillness, through a fire behind your eyes that says, I know who I am, and nothing you do can shake it. That fire is rare, and rare energy always attracts, especially when it's paired with empathy, with strength that doesn't belittle but uplifts. When she feels your authority isn't about ego but about direction, she stops resisting and starts aligning. So become that man, the one whose power is silent, not shaky, the one who doesn't chase submission but creates safety. Because when you embody true dominance, you won't have to convince her of anything. She'll feel it in her chest, in her gut, in the way her heart calms around you. Not because you said the right words, but because your energy speaks the language of leadership. That is what she follows, not words, not gestures, energy. Be the energy that leads without effort, and she will follow without resistance. There's a hidden pattern that plays out in far more relationships than most men realize. A cycle of attraction, intensity, then confusion and distance. You give her everything, your time, your attention, your affection, and still she pulls back. You offer consistency, loyalty, and warmth, yet she starts to seem bored. This is where most men get lost. They start questioning their worth. They wonder if they did something wrong. But what they don't understand is this. For many women, emotional variety is oxygen. She doesn't just want to feel loved, she wants to feel alive. And if your energy becomes too predictable, too soft, too safe, she will unconsciously pull away to find emotional stimulation elsewhere. This doesn't mean she wants chaos or pain. It means she wants to feel something that moves her. And when a man becomes too consistent in only one emotional note, always agreeable, always available, always comfortable, he slowly fades from her emotional radar. The fire dims. Not because he lacks value, but because he stopped creating emotional polarity. You must understand, attraction doesn't live in comfort. It lives in contrast, the balance of tension and safety, mystery and familiarity, softness and edge. She wants to know you love her, but she also wants to be reminded you can walk away. Not because you're trying to play games, but because you're not emotionally dependent on her approval to stand tall. That edge is not cruelty, it's magnetism. The ability to surprise her, to challenge her, to keep her guessing in a way that awakens her feminine core. That doesn't mean being erratic or distant. It means being dynamic, emotionally layered, capable of shifting gears, of making her laugh, making her think, making her feel deeply seen, and also holding a silence so strong she leans in to fill it. When you live in only one mode, she adapts. And when she adapts, attraction cools. But when you bring energy she can't fully anticipate, when you stay centered while still bringing intensity, she can't stop thinking about you. This is why the man who can master emotional range is unstoppable. Not because he's unpredictable in a chaotic way, but because he brings a full spectrum of presence. He can hold depth in his eyes, danger in his smile, and warmth in his touch. That kind of man is unforgettable. He makes her feel safe, but never complacent. He makes her feel adored, but never in control. That's where desire lives, in the mystery, in the dance, in the way your energy moves, not wildly, but intentionally. So stop being one-dimensional. Stop thinking loyalty alone is enough. Loyalty is the foundation, but polarity is the flame. Without it, she may love you, but she won't crave you. And if she doesn't crave you, you lose the very force that made her drawn to you in the first place. Stay dynamic. Stay grounded. Be the calm fire that warms, but also burns with quiet intensity. That's the energy she remembers. That's the energy she never forgets. She watches how others see you. She listens to how others speak about you. She notices your posture when you're not trying to impress her, your tone when you speak to strangers, your presence when you walk into a room full of energy that has nothing to do with her. That's when her attraction either deepens or disappears. Because whether she admits it or not, a woman is wired to respond to social proof, not in a superficial way, but in a deeply subconscious one. When others respect you, admire you, follow you, she feels something different. She senses value that isn't just your words to her, but your reflection in the world. And that reflection shapes how she sees you. This is why trying to prove yourself to her never works, why convincing, explaining, or justifying always backfires. The men who chase are the men who signal they have nothing better. And nothing kills desire faster than the energy of desperation. But the man who lives a life bigger than her attention, the man who is driven by mission, surrounded by loyalty, respected by peers, that man doesn't need to say a word. His life speaks for him. His presence is evidence. His energy is his resume. And she feels that in her body before you ever open your mouth. When you build yourself up in private, it shows in public, not through arrogance, but through certainty. When your name carries weight, when your actions speak louder than your compliments, when your life moves with purpose. She doesn't just like you, she looks up to you. And admiration is the gateway to feminine surrender. Without it, she may be entertained by you, but she will never feel pulled by you. She will never feel led. And without that, there is no real polarity. You become more attractive not by saying more, but by becoming more disciplined, more respected, more focused. When you're so consumed with growth that you forget to seek validation, you begin to radiate the very thing she's unconsciously searching for. A man who doesn't need her to feel important because his importance is self-sourced. A man who's so mission-driven that even love becomes something he gives, not something he begs for. That's the difference between being wanted and being needed. She may enjoy being wanted, but she will only surrender to a man who doesn't need her to survive. So focus on building your name, build your body, build your mindset, build your network, build your future. Let your life become the proof. Because when your value is felt by the world, she'll feel it too. And when she sees others respect you, it tells her she's not just falling for a man, but for a leader. Not a boy chasing attention, but a force moving with intention. That's when her walls begin to fall. Not because of what you said to her, but because of who you became without her. She feels what you feel, even when you don't say it, even when you think you're hiding it. A woman can sense your inner state before you speak a single word. That's not magic, that's emotional attunement. And most men don't realize how deeply women are affected by emotional energy. When you're grounded, calm, and in control, she relaxes. When you're anxious, desperate, or reactive, she mirrors it, often without knowing why. Emotional energy is contagious. It passes through your tone, your eye contact, your silence, your posture. You don't have to yell, beg, or explain. Who you are in the silence is louder than anything you say. This is why emotional control isn't optional, it's essential. Not only for your own peace, but because your emotional state becomes hers. If you're quick to anger, she becomes defensive. If you're uncertain, she becomes cold. If you're needy, she becomes distant. But when you stand in calm power, when your emotions are steady, when your breath slows instead of speeds up, she feels safe. Not because the world is calm, but because you are. And safety is what allows her to open. She can't soften if she's on alert. She can't surrender if she feels you're unstable. She wants to let go, but only if you can hold it all, her emotions, her fire, her storms, without folding. To be that man, you must train your nervous system, not by numbing your feelings, but by mastering them. Let emotions rise, but don't be ruled by them. Feel fully, but respond slowly. Speak with clarity, not urgency. Move with presence, not panic. The stronger your emotional spine, the more feminine energy can flow toward you. Not because you force it, but because you make room for it. Feminine energy flourishes in the presence of emotional stability. It can be wild, expressive, unpredictable, because it knows it's held. When you lead with reactive energy, you place the burden of leadership on her shoulders. She feels it instantly. She may smile, she may pretend, but deep down, she loses trust. And once trust is gone, attraction follows. Not all at once, but slowly, quietly, until she's no longer emotionally available, even if she's still physically present. And that loss is rarely about what you did. It's about what you couldn't hold. So become the man who can hold anything: chaos, criticism, confusion, emotion. Lead with presence. When she cries, stay calm. When she argues, stay grounded. When she pulls away, stay steady. You don't chase, you don't collapse. You breathe, you listen, you lead. That's what builds trust. That's what builds desire. Because when you become emotionally unshakable, you don't just earn her affection, you earn her surrender. Not to control her, but to protect her. Not to dominate, but to contain. You become the stillness in her storm. And that stillness is what she's been waiting to feel. She doesn't always know she's testing you. It's not a plan. It's not a strategy. It's instinct. A pull to feel your strength. A push to see if you bend. She needs to know if your confidence is real, if your words have weight, if your boundaries are solid. And if you fold, if you hesitate, if you become defensive, she may not say anything. But inside, something shifts. She loses trust. Not in you, but in your foundation.
And once she loses trust in your strength, respect begins to fade.
Without respect, desire dissolves, slowly, silently, until you're left wondering what happened. But it wasn't sudden. It was the moment you gave up your frame to keep the peace. You're not being tested to be punished. You're being tested to be revealed, to yourself, to her, to the world. Because she's not looking for control. She's looking for leadership. And leadership means you do not allow your standards to slip just to avoid discomfort. You do not betray your truth just to keep her happy for a moment. You lead with clarity, not fear. That doesn't mean being rigid. It means being rooted. Knowing who you are, what you value, and what you will not tolerate. Not because you're trying to prove anything, but because your boundaries are built from self-respect. Most men collapse at the first sign of tension. They turn yes into a habit. They tolerate what drains them. They agree to avoid conflict, and with every small compromise, their power leaks. Not all at once, but drip by drip, until one day, they're resented for being too soft, too passive, too lost. The irony is they thought they were doing the right thing, keeping her happy, being flexible, staying easygoing. But deep down, she wasn't looking for easy. She was looking for solid. She was waiting to feel your edge, not in aggression, but in integrity. The man who can say no without guilt. The man who can hold tension without needing to be liked. That's when she softens. That's when she lets go. Because she finally feels the presence of a man who won't fold. And that presence is rare. Not many men carry it. Because not many men have done the work to become it, to become the kind of man who chooses peace over approval, strength over comfort, truth over temporary harmony. The man who can walk away, not in anger, but in full self-respect. And because he can, he rarely has to. That energy speaks louder than any words. It's felt in the silence, in the way you say less, but everything you say lands with force. So hold your line, not with pride, with principle. Let your boundaries define you, not to keep her out, but to keep your self-worth in. Because when she feels your frame, she feels safe. And when she feels safe, she trusts. And when she trusts, she follows. Not because you forced it, but because you earned it. She wants you close, but not at the cost of your soul. She wants to feel your heart, but only if it's still anchored in your mission. The moment you drop everything for her, the moment you turn her into your purpose, she begins to lose what she was drawn to in the first place. It's not your presence she's craving most. It's your direction, your clarity, your path. That silent fire in your eyes that tells her you're going somewhere with or without her. That your life has weight, meaning, purpose, and that she can join, but never replace it. When your purpose fades to win her attention, you don't become more attractive. You become forgettable, because without purpose, you have no gravity. A man without direction is a man without edge. And edge is what she responds to, even if she can't explain why. You might think staying constantly available makes you seem loving. You might believe sacrificing your goals proves commitment. But what it actually proves is that you don't value your own path enough to protect it. And if you don't value it, neither will she. Women don't fall in love with potential. They fall in love with momentum, with movement, with the man who refuses to be distracted from what drives him. Because that refusal isn't coldness. It's power. It's rare. And what's rare is magnetic. When you live with purpose, everything about you shifts. Your energy, your presence, your discipline. You stop chasing connection and start commanding respect. You stop seeking validation and start radiating certainty. And that certainty doesn't come from what you say. It comes from the quiet commitment you've made to yourself, to grow, to build, to lead. That commitment is what she feels in her chest when she watches you. That's what makes her heart beat faster. Not the things you buy her, not the time you give her, but the man you are when she's not around, the man who is building something bigger than romance, something unshakable. You can love her deeply. You can give her presence, affection, and attention, but it must never come at the cost of your drive. Because the second you orbit around her instead of your mission, she stops feeling safe. Not because you're not kind, but because you've stopped leading. Your path must always come first. Not because she isn't worthy, but because your purpose is what fuels the masculine. And when a man is fueled, he becomes unstoppable. And when he's unstoppable, he becomes unforgettable. So choose the path, not the comfort. Protect the fire, not the fantasy. Build the life that inspires you, even if she never claps for it. Because when you lead from vision, not emotion, she feels it. And when she feels it, she follows. Not because you asked her to, but because she sees in you something few men ever embody, a man who doesn't need her to be whole, because he's already full. And that fullness is what she trusts. That fullness is what she desires. She is not drawn to perfection. She's drawn to progress, to momentum, to movement. What keeps her attention isn't a flawless man. It's a man who refuses to stay the same. When you try to be perfect, you become mechanical, predictable, polished but dull. But when you're obsessed with growth, when you carry the hunger to evolve, to expand, to rise, she feels it, and that fire is what ignites her. Because deep down, she doesn't want a man who has it all figured out. She wants a man who never stops figuring it out. A man who rises every time he falls, who sharpens every time he bleeds, who walks through doubt but never lays down in it. She watches how you handle struggle, how you respond to challenge, how you carry yourself when you don't win. And if you meet adversity with courage instead of collapse, she feels something ancient awaken in her. She respects you more, desires you more, not because you're bulletproof, but because you're relentless. You are not defined by your results. You are defined by your commitment to rise. Every day better, every hour sharper. That mindset isn't just attractive, it's magnetic. It pulls her in not because you're impressive, but because you're alive, engaged, focused. And men like that are rare. There is nothing more repelling to the feminine than stagnation. When a man stops growing, when he stops leading himself forward, when he lets comfort become identity, he starts to fade in her eyes. She may still care. She may still be kind. But the fire dies quietly. because she doesn't crave a man who stands still. She craves a man who moves with intention, who wakes up with something to chase, something to become. That forward motion is the source of your edge. It's what makes her lean in, curious about who you'll become tomorrow. You don't need to have everything now. You just need to be on the path. The man who is willing to face his flaws, upgrade his mind, and stretch his limits becomes deeply attractive, not just to women, but to life itself. Opportunities follow men in motion. Respect follows men in discipline. Desire follows men who choose growth over comfort every single time. So stop waiting to be ready. Stop hiding behind the mask of perfection. Be raw, be real, and then rise. Show her, not through words but through your evolution, that you are a man who never settles, that every day is fuel, that every moment is a chance to become sharper, stronger, wiser, that you don't just live, you level up. When you carry that kind of energy, you don't chase her. You don't chase anything. You simply become. And through that becoming, you attract. Not because you forced her attention, but because you became the man who could not be ignored. Not perfect, but powerful. Not finished, but becoming. And that's what she feels in her bones. Growth, relentless masculine growth. Every woman, whether she admits it or not, longs to feel something stronger than words. She wants to feel your depth, not through compliments, but through presence. Not through gifts, but through grounded energy. She is hypersensitive to energy. She can sense the difference between a man who acts confident and a man who is confident. One speaks from his throat, the other from his chest. One pushes, the other attracts. And when you stand in your presence fully anchored, you say more in silence than most men say with 1,000 words. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to dominate a room. Your stillness speaks for you. Your calm cuts through noise. Your energy becomes the authority. When you're centered, you don't react. You choose. You don't rush. You move with intention. And that control, that restraint, that poise is what makes you powerful. She doesn't want your chaos. She wants your stability. Because her emotions may shift, her moods may rise and fall, but she wants to feel that no matter what storm moves through her, you remain unmoved. That doesn't mean being cold. It means being steady, being safe, not just for her, but for yourself. Emotional leadership isn't about suppressing your feelings. It's about owning them. Feeling deeply, but not drowning. Responding, not reacting. And when you lead yourself like that, she naturally trusts you more. Not just with her body, but with her heart. She notices how you hold yourself when things go wrong. How you breathe when tension builds. How you carry pressure. And if your energy is scattered, she doesn't feel safe to soften. But when your energy is grounded, she relaxes into her feminine. Because finally, she feels the presence of a man who can hold space, not just for her, but for life itself. This isn't about pretending to be emotionless. It's about being emotionally mature, clear, calm, controlled. And that control is rare in a world that rewards noise. Presence is your power. It's not built in the moment. It's practiced in the moments before, through discipline, through silence, through the choice to show up every day, not for her approval, but for your own alignment. When you stop chasing outcomes and start embodying truth, you become magnetic. Not because you seek validation, but because you radiate certainty. And that certainty can't be faked. It's felt in your voice, in your eyes, in your posture. She feels it when you walk in the room. It makes her feel safe, desired, and drawn, without needing to be convinced. So build that presence, not for attention, but for foundation. Let your energy be the thing that sets you apart. Speak less, ground more, lead with your state, not your sentence. And when you do, you become the man she respects without question, trusts without doubt, and follows without fear. Because she knows you're not led by emotion, you're led by purpose. And that kind of man changes everything. A woman instinctively watches how you handle desire, not just hers, but your own. She wants to know if you're led by it or if you lead it, if you're ruled by impulse or governed by intention. Because the man who chases every attraction lacks depth. The man who seeks constant validation loses presence. She craves a man who has access to his desire, but not addiction to it. A man who can feel the fire and still hold the flame. That kind of discipline isn't cold, it's powerful. It shows control. It shows a mastery of self that few men ever attain. And that mastery awakens something deep in her: respect, trust, and curiosity. When you're not easily moved by temptation, you reveal something rare, strength without suppression. Desire is not your enemy. Denying it doesn't make you more powerful. Disciplining it does. The man who can't say no to himself will always be weak, no matter how charming he appears. But the man who knows what to say yes to, and when, builds a life by design, not by accident. That's what draws her in. The ability to want her without needing her, to enjoy her presence without depending on it. Because when your validation doesn't come from her, your power multiplies. She tests, often without realizing it. She watches if your gaze is steady or wandering. If your focus breaks when beauty enters the room, not because she wants to control you, but because she wants to trust you. She wants to feel that your masculinity isn't reactive, it's chosen. That you know who you are even when desire calls your name. A man who is a slave to pleasure cannot lead. But a man who owns his cravings, who channels them with purpose, becomes unstoppable. He becomes dangerous in the best way. Dangerous to weakness, dangerous to mediocrity, dangerous to the part of her that craves a man who doesn't flinch. Your energy speaks before you do. If your presence is rooted in self-control, she feels safe. She feels wanted, but not smothered. She feels desired, but not devoured. That balance is magnetic. It doesn't just attract, it builds trust. And trust is the deepest form of connection. It allows her to open, to soften, to give more, because she knows you won't lose yourself in the giving. You'll stay steady. You'll stay grounded. That's what allows true intimacy to unfold. Not just physical, but emotional, spiritual, and energetic. So sharpen your desire, but never let it lead you. Let it fuel your mission, not distract from it. Let it add to your strength, not replace it. When you carry your hunger with honor, when you refuse to be owned by it, you become rare. And that rarity makes you unforgettable. Not because you chase, but because you choose. Not because you need, but because you lead. She doesn't want a man who falls to his impulses. She wants the man who stands above them. The one who chooses her not out of lack, but out of power. A woman watches how you handle uncertainty, not just in the world, but within yourself. She pays attention to the moments you hesitate, the silence between your words, the doubts behind your eyes. And she's not looking for perfection. She's looking for presence through imperfection. She knows no man is fearless, but she's drawn to the man who feels fear and walks anyway, who faces doubt and decides anyway, the one who leads himself even when the path isn't clear. That quiet strength, that inner certainty amid chaos is what sets you apart. Not because you always know the answer, but because you're willing to keep moving forward until you do. When you own uncertainty, you become unshakable. You stop needing guarantees. You stop needing approval. You stop waiting for the perfect time, the perfect words, the perfect conditions. Instead, you trust your ability to adapt, to learn, to adjust, to figure it out along the way. That trust in yourself isn't loud. It's steady. It doesn't brag. It doesn't beg. It just is. And she feels it. It creates an energy around you that doesn't need explanation. You become the man who others naturally look to, not because you demand it, but because your grounded presence gives them permission to breathe. When your validation isn't tied to outcomes, but to your commitment to grow, nothing can stop you. Not failure, not rejection, not criticism, because you're not here to impress. You're here to evolve. That mindset makes you magnetic. Women don't just want a man who wins. They want a man who refuses to quit. One who stays calm in confusion. One who keeps his heart open in uncertainty. One who doesn't fold when things get heavy. That's what makes you trustworthy. Not your perfection, but your resilience. She notices when you lean into the unknown instead of escaping it, when you choose presence over panic, when you lead conversations with clarity even if you don't have all the answers. That composure tells her everything. It tells her she can relax around you, that you won't run when things get real, that you won't crumble under pressure, that you won't betray your values just to feel safe. She's looking for a man who can lead her through complexity with grace. And that begins with how you lead yourself through your own chaos. So stop waiting to be certain. Start choosing to be steady. Trust that your ability to handle the unknown is far more valuable than any fixed plan. Let her see that even when life is unclear, you are not. You are not defined by what you know, but by your willingness to grow. That mindset doesn't just inspire her, it awakens her. It makes her feel secure in your presence. And it sets you apart from the millions who chase clarity but avoid courage. Be the man who walks forward when others freeze. The one who trusts movement more than comfort. Because that man isn't just attractive, he's unforgettable. A woman pays close attention to how you handle pressure. Not just from her, but from life. She senses when you're hiding behind silence or exploding with emotion. She knows when you're avoiding discomfort or owning it like a man. Pressure is the mirror that shows her who you really are. It's not the moment you control everything. It's the moment you choose how you respond when you can't. That choice reveals your character. And your character is what earns her respect. You don't win her loyalty through charm or perfection. You win it by being the man who remains steady when everything else shakes. When pressure hits, many fold. They retreat into distraction, numb out with pleasure, or blame the world for their struggle. But the man who stays centered, who meets the weight head on and breathes through it, radiates something rare, emotional stability. That doesn't mean you're cold or emotionless. It means your emotions don't control your actions. It means your power isn't borrowed. It's built. You become the anchor in a storm, not the wave crashing through it. That emotional self-control is not weakness. It's leadership. And she doesn't just want to feel your strength. She wants to trust your leadership. That trust is born the moment you prove you won't abandon yourself under pressure. You don't have to know every solution. You just have to hold your ground. Not every battle requires words. Not every challenge needs an immediate answer. Sometimes the most powerful move is to pause, breathe, and respond with intention instead of reaction. That's the difference between a boy and a man. A boy reacts from insecurity. A man responds from principle. And she watches that difference closely. She's not testing you to see if you'll explode. She's observing if you can stay calm when it matters. If you lose yourself when she's emotional, she cannot feel safe around you. But if you can hold the space, stay grounded, and lead the emotional climate with clarity, she will open in ways you've never seen. Your emotional discipline becomes her security. When she feels your peace under pressure, she begins to trust that you can handle more than just her body. You can handle her heart. That depth of trust is not built in easy moments. It's forged in fire. When life throws the unexpected at you and you don't run, she sees who you are. Not in theory, but in truth. That's when she leans in. Not because you're pretending to be strong, but because you've built real strength within. A calm mind, a steady voice, a clear presence, these are rare, but they are yours if you train for them. Let pressure refine you. Let it sharpen your instincts, not shake your identity. You are not your reaction, you are your response. When she sees that, she doesn't just feel attraction, she feels devotion. Not because you forced it, but because you earned it, through presence, through patience, through power you built from the inside out. Control is not about dominating her, it's about mastering yourself. It's about carrying the kind of energy that doesn't waver with moods, that doesn't chase approval, that doesn't depend on her reaction to feel worthy. When a man can hold that kind of control over his own mind, his emotions, and his responses, he becomes magnetic. She feels it instantly, not because you said the right thing, but because you are grounded, focused, and unshakably centered. That's the kind of control that isn't aggressive, it's calming. It gives her space to let go, to trust, to soften. And when she softens, everything changes. Too many men confuse control with force, but force only creates resistance. Real control is invisible. It's the energy you carry in silence. It's the pause before you speak. It's the ability to walk away without anger, to stay calm when tested, to respond without needing to win. That's what creates real influence. Not manipulation, not pressure, but presence. A presence so steady that it pulls her toward you without effort. Because deep down, every woman craves that masculine stillness. Not a man who controls her actions, but a man who governs himself so completely that she can trust his direction. To develop that, you have to become aware of your triggers. You have to stop reacting from wounded places and start choosing from your higher self. When you feel jealousy, don't act out, step back. When you feel ignored, don't chase, stand tall. When she withdraws, don't panic, hold your posture. That restraint is not weakness. It's the highest form of strength. It tells her that your emotions don't own you, that your value isn't tied to how she treats you, that you are your own source of peace. And in that peace, she finds her freedom. She feels safe to be vulnerable, to open, to trust, because your control doesn't limit her. It liberates her. It gives her something to lean into, something solid, something real. That's the gift of true masculine energy. Not dominance, but direction. Not control over her, but control over yourself. And the man who leads himself leads everything around him without needing to say a word. So train your awareness, catch your impulses, master your breath, learn to wait without needing, learn to observe without reacting. That's how kings move. That's how warriors walk. not with chaos, but with quiet command. And when she sees that in you, when she feels that restraint and respect, she begins to relax. She begins to trust. Because she doesn't want to be ruled. She wants to be led, not with pressure, but with power, not with noise, but with presence. That is the kind of control that changes everything, not because it makes you powerful over others, but because it makes you unbreakable within yourself. And when you become unbreakable, the world begins to move around you, not because you force it, but because your gravity pulls it naturally. Confidence is not loud. It's not arrogance, not boastful words, not flexing for attention. Confidence is stillness. It's the calm knowing that you belong wherever you are without needing to prove it. It's the silent strength in your posture, the grounded tone in your voice, the ease in your eye contact. A man who truly believes in himself doesn't have to show off. He doesn't chase validation. He doesn't crumble when he's tested, because he knows who he is. And when a woman senses that, she respects it, even if she never says it. She feels the certainty in your presence. It makes her feel secure, and it makes you unforgettable. But that kind of confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. Every time you keep your word to yourself, you grow it. Every time you face fear instead of running, you strengthen it. Every time you do the hard thing when no one is watching, you become it. That's the process. That's the internal work that separates men who talk from men who move. Because confidence doesn't come from outcomes. It comes from preparation, from discipline, from doing what most avoid. It's not about having it all figured out. It's about knowing you can handle whatever comes. When you stop tying your worth to external things, looks, money, approval, you start accessing real confidence. The kind that doesn't rise and fall with how others treat you. The kind that holds steady in rejection, in failure, in pressure. That's when you stop shrinking yourself to be liked. That's when you stop performing to be accepted. That's when you start attracting respect instead of begging for attention. Because you've shifted the power inward. You've stopped asking the world who you are. And that's when the world begins to respond. Women are drawn to this not because it's flashy, but because it's rare. Insecurity is everywhere. Insecurity is noisy, reactive, always seeking something outside itself. But real confidence is different. It's quiet. It listens more than it speaks. It holds its ground without needing to win. It creates safety without saying a word. And in a world full of men who fake strength, a man with real inner stability becomes irresistible. So if you want to stand out, stop chasing attention, start building integrity, keep the promises you make to yourself, train your body, sharpen your mind, honor your word. These aren't just habits. They're bricks in the foundation of unshakable confidence. And the deeper that foundation, the higher you can rise. Not for show, but because you've earned your own respect. That's the man women notice. That's the man people follow. Not because he demands it, but because he carries himself like he already knows his value. And when you reach that level, you won't need to say a word. The way you walk into a room will speak for you. The way you carry yourself will do the talking. That's true confidence. And it can't be faked. It must be built relentlessly,